All right, guys, we are live. This is the UFC 287 recap show on the Sherdog Radio Network. I'm sorry that my dog is being extremely loud in the corner. If you can hear that, I apologize. I am your host. My name is Keith Shillan. Joining me, as always, is the senior editor. He's got the hat backwards, which means he's really excited for tonight. He's the great Ben Duffy. Ben, how you doing, my man? Ben, you're on mute.
I'm doing well. We got plenty to talk about, don't we? Pretty interesting night of fights.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to everybody watching online. Jump in the chat. I think it's the best thing going after an event. We have very respectful community, so shout out to everybody in there. We'll try to get as many comments on the screen as possible, answer any questions, get really into it. We have 12 fights to cover, as one fight got canceled as the event started. We'll start right from the top. I will warn people, I try not to drink during the fights. I had a good time tonight. I had a couple of friends over. We had a good time. Hopefully I'll be as professional as you guys expect. All right, let's get right into it. Main event, Alex Pereira making his first title defense against longtime champion and rival Israel Adesanya. I'm going to ask you a question. Again, I don't even know where to start. Israel Adesanya won by second round knockout, a crushing knockout, instantly probably a contender for knockout of the year, as he is returning as the champion, middleweight, the king. I want to talk about how impressive I am with Israel Adesanya. I've said this many times. I just love Israel Adesanya. It just and I'm not talking about the person. I mean, just his fighting style and everything that goes along with it. I want to talk about the other side, though, the things that we never talk about, and I want to talk about the mental toughness of this guy. Just imagine for a second you're 0-3 in combat sports against this guy. You're the smaller guy. Your coach publicly said that you thought you were returning too soon. You're facing the guy again that just you can't get over the hump. He's kicking your legs out. You already said in the last match that your legs were being an issue. He's having success early. I had it down, him down 1-0 heading into the second. I think you probably had the same scorecard. Yep. You're hurt against the fan. It looks like you're hurt again. I know he said he was playing possible. I do think he was hurt. He might not have been, about to get knocked out hurt, but you're in that range where he knocked you out last time. And despite all this stuff, seemed like, oh no, it's going to happen again to him. He lands this clean 1-2, follows it up with another shot, and then puts him out with hammer fist. I think this is the best performance of Israel Adesanya's career. Well, I shouldn't say it because he's had some pretty good performances. Not the best performance, but when 10 years from now, when he's long retired, I think this might be the first one that'll pop in my head.
I agree. This is a career-defining performance. It wasn't a perfect performance, obviously. He had lost the first round pretty clearly. He lost the first half of the second round, and then all of a sudden, none of that mattered. And the finish, the sequence that finished, illustrated so many of the things that he does perhaps better than anybody that has ever fought in mixed martial arts. His accuracy at hitting a moving target is completely unheard of. The 1-2 was brilliant. Obviously buckled Pereira's legs, but that second right hand, it didn't even look that hard. Although, I mean, obviously it was a solid shot, sure, but just comes from the unexpected angle, lands perfectly on the chin, and he could have walked off at that point. I know he tacked on the hammer fist, but that was a walk-off knockout if he wanted it. Just brilliant stuff. And what did it take? Pereira got a little hungry for the finish, came in with his hands down, and just that little tiny opening, as compromised as Adesanya obviously was, he seized the opportunity and slammed the door like a champ does.
Yeah, there's so many things. You talk about the accuracy, and I've seen some people talk about, he he's definitely a knockout artist. But when you think of, when we think of the all-time hardest hitters in the sport, we won't think of Israel Adesanya. But he knocks guys out because of how clean he lands.
No. Okay.
And
Here, real quick. If you took the entire middleweight top 20 in the UFC right now and just had them line up and punch the bag at the UFC Performance Center.
Yeah, like the
does
like the one you see
even,
it like the ones you see it on arcade and stuff to see how hard you can punch.
The one that Ngannou punched back in 2018, and they said it was like a Ford Escort hitting you at 30 miles an hour. If all 20 of those guys just take one shot at the bag with their fist of choice, does Adesanya even come out in the top half?
It'd be close. Like, I think that 8 to 14 range would be where he'd be. Like, Pereira would be number one.
Yeah, he almost certainly would. He's nowhere near as good a striker, but I bet someone like Marvin Vettori just flat out hits the bag harder.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think he hits. I mean, Jared Cannonier clearly hits harder than him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can see Kelvin Gastelum hitting harder than him.
Yeah.
But the way he lands so clean, and that just puts anybody out. And yeah, well, I said, I think he was getting hurt a little bit, but I don't think he was it wasn't like the first fight where he was like, okay, I'm about to go out. One thing I'll say about Adesanya, where I'm really torn if it was just perfectly timed punch, or if it was, which obviously it was, or if it was something that he saw that hey, when he went in the kill last time, he throws that left hook from so far down that he winds up, and then if I can just kind of block one and then come straight down while he's winding up, I can land something. And that's exactly what happened. And well, normally I wouldn't say that's something you see in tape study. The student of the game that Izzy is, it's a possibility.
Yeah.
So I didn't know how I felt about Izzy this week. We do the preview show, and shout out to everybody who watches that. And I pray and ask if you guys watch this show, that if you like a really deep, in-depth preview, I think me and you do the best or at least the deepest. I don't know if it's the best, but it's definitely the deepest preview show there is. So we don't get all the pre-week stuff because we post early in the week. But Izzy was so different than I've ever seen him. His personality, he wasn't answering questions. He was very short. And even last time in New York, he was short, but different. There was still that joking, Izzy, quick punchlines. This was angry, and I'm sick of losing to this guy, and just laser focused. And I wasn't sure. Is he laser focused, and this is going to be a good thing, or is Pereira in his head?
Right.
And that obviously wasn't the second one, wasn't the case. It was obviously the first one where he was just so laser focused, which goes back to that mental thing. I'm so impressed by Israel Adesanya tonight.
Yeah. I mean, you started to say, and then sort of backed away from it, saying that this was the best performance of his career. Obviously, it wasn't the most dominant performance of his career. He, pulled his biscuits out of the fire after probably losing the first 8 minutes of the fight, or 7 minutes of the fight. But considering the opponent, considering the history of the opponent with the opponent, and how he beat him. He beat a guy that we were ready to crown the best striker going in mixed martial arts right now, purely striking. We didn't even get to the point where he feinted a level change to throw Pereira off balance. That was a pure kickboxing match in 4-ounce gloves. And he knocked him cold in a way that Pereira never had before. To my knowledge, Pereira was only stopped by strikes once in kickboxing, and it was an accumulation thing. It was not a face plant or, this time staring at the lights, dead knockout.
Yeah, it was super impressive. If someone said to me, hey, there's going to be a guy unconscious near the cage, I never would have counted Izzy out. I mean, I picked Izzy to win, and I've always thought he could starch Pereira, but betting on. So if I had my house, I had to bet on someone's going to win by early knockout. I would have went with
Yeah.
Alex Pereira. And then if you asked me after the first round, I'm like, it's coming. Like Izzy's legs are starting to fail him. He's not gonna be able to move as much. It's coming. For Izzy to do that, it was so impressive. And it seemed, I mean, obviously when pay-per-view main events end in spectacular fashion, it always seems like a huge moment. But something seemed bigger to me this time. And maybe I seemed like there was definitely more celebrities than usual. I mean, you had I mean, not to get political. You had Donald Trump, the former president of the United States, sitting in the front row. You had, obviously Mike Tyson's there a lot, but you had Kid Rock. You had
a bunch of NFL Pro Bowlers.
Tons of NFL.
Yeah.
They just like grazed right past Tyreek Hill without even mentioning like one of the, I don't know, top 5 wide receiver, maybe even higher in the NFL.
Yeah.
I think they said Justin Jefferson was there. Joe Burrow was there. And I mean,
both Bosa brothers were there. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't see that. Yeah, like there was actors and different different people, and obviously the celebrities that you always get at UFC events. But something about this one just seemed big, and I know Izzy makes things seem big.
He does, but you know what? This one felt bigger than their first fight, and their first fight was in Madison Square Garden with an absolutely stacked card. This card was a little more questionable, though it delivered. Yeah, no, I agree. This one felt huge. And part of it is just going back to Miami for the first time in a long, long time.
Sure.
Oh, 30C West, get all your betting advice from Shillan and Duffy. Just get it from Shillan.
No. And Miami is like, it's not New York City, but it is a glamour city. It's not like he didn't win in Milwaukee. He didn't win in Phoenix. He won in Miami. I mean, Miami Beach. I mean, I always think of like LeBron James taking my talents down to South Beach and all this, and the prettiest people, and me and my friends are sitting around saying like, one guy was saying like, oh, can you imagine the amount of cocaine in that building right now? And I'm like, yeah, it's like cocaine and fake tits. Like that's what you get tonight in that building. And Izzy, I mean, he has that star power. Another thing I thought, which we didn't get from Izzy, especially in this being that how late we didn't have this like grand entrance that we normally get.
No, he walked out to Trapped.
I don't even know what that is.
It's a new metal band that had one huge hit in the early 2000s, and ironically, is most famous right now because their lead singer runs their Twitter account and like is super, super like pro Donald Trump. Like that's, I mean, I don't think that's why Izzy chose him, but like it's just an interesting bit of irony. It was the perfect soundtrack to tonight.
Yeah. So, I mean, he didn't have like, the last one was, I mean, I said this to you last time. And again, when you're there live, it's different. Like entrances live are different than on TV. Like they try to do a really good job on TV, but you don't get the full base of things. And I remember being in New York City when they fought last time, and when Alex Pereira came out and it has that
the native garb,
that warrior chant coming in, and just the lights and the way the timing and the bass and the way whoever designed MSG, it's like almost like it's like the sun goes up and then comes back down on you. And I was just like, oh my God, this might be the greatest entrance I've ever seen. And then Izzy goes right afterwards with the saw thing and all that. And I don't know if you guys saw the whole, I'm assuming they showed the whole like saw scene beforehand. And I was like, I think Izzy just topped it. Again, I'm in the building. I'm super excited. Like it's a little different. But we didn't get that with Izzy tonight. It was just like
pretty business-like.
Business. I don't think this was a bad showing for Alex Pereira, though. Like I was watching a guy and he looked great early, and I said he made adjustments. That right hand that Izzy was having success with, he was hitting him still with it, because I mean, you're talking about, in my opinion, in one or two. He's at least in the club for greatest strikers in MMA history.
Yeah.
So he's still going to land. but it was more glancing. He had like answers for it. He went to the calf kick much like he had success in the calf kick last time. This time it was like over and over and over again going to the calf kick. So I, Alex Pereira, I thought looked good. I thought he was making the adjustments, and then he gets starts. I'm really surprised there was not even any grappling at all in the
Zero.
fight.
Yeah.
I thought Izzy was good. I really thought like we might be in for let's play it safe, let's wrestle performance from Adesanya. Especially when he was asked about it, and he kind of said like, "Yeah, we'll see." Like he didn't give that. No, I'm gonna knock his head off. I'm gonna kill him. Like he said, yeah, it could happen. I could grapple. Did not see it at all. I was really surprised by that, which might be maybe he felt the. I don't know. Maybe there's a reason why he didn't want to grapple. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, Aunt Maliors, thank you for this bit of information. All the judges apparently scored that first round for Adesanya, so I guess Pereira was technically losing. That's interesting to me because
so I'll shut the hell up then.
To me, it looked.
Yeah, rewind everything I just said the last 5 minutes.
I sure felt as though Pereira did more damage that round. I mean, by every measure of how you score a round, he landed more effective offense. If you don't think he landed more effective offense and you move to grappling, there was no grappling, aggression, and octagon control. I mean, Pereira was coming forward and Adesanya kind of skipping around the outside for a lot of the round. That's interesting that the judges scored that one for Adesanya, but hey. Dev and a couple other people have asked, does what must be a colossal weight cut for Alex Pereira affect his chin?
I don't know. I'm not a doctor. It doesn't help. Like that I can say. I think age. Like we don't talk about how old he is. He's not a spring chicken.
Like
36. I think he's 36. You said right?
35 or 36. Yeah.
Yeah, he's up there. 35, 36. I think that has more effect than the weight cut. I mean, the weight cut obviously could.
And okay, he's 35. He turns 36 in July, and it's not like he just rolled off his couch at age 31 and was like, I'd like to try this fighting thing. He's been one of the top kickboxers in the world for a decade. And a lot of his biggest accomplishments in kickboxing came at 85 kilos. So that's what, 187, 188. So he's coming in even a tad lighter than that for MMA and older and fighting guys with smaller gloves. Yeah, I at a glance, he looks like a guy that, I mean, he wouldn't be undersized at light heavyweight. He wouldn't be undersized at heavyweight.
Yeah.
I mean, he basically looks like if you kept Alistair Overeem away from the weight room when he was still trying to make 205.
I don't think he'd be undersized in the NBA. Like he's big. He's like huge. Like I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I seen Alex Pereira and I could not believe how big like this size. I mean, Izzy's a big dude too. Like Izzy's, he's not huge, even though I don't think he looked like he put a little bit of muscle on for this fight. Alex Pereira is humongous, but I don't want to get into like the age. I'm worried about the weight cut possibly. I just want to talk about these two guys. The only thing I can think of is how much of a shame that if you watch the kickboxing matches, that first fight wasn't ruled to Izzy, as I thought he should have been. I thought he clearly won the first kickboxing match. If he won that decision, we'd be 1-1 in kickboxing and 1-1 in MMA. Like, how fantastic would that be?
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask something. I like to live in the moment. I asked you, is Pereira and Adesanya the best rivalry currently in MMA? And you agreed with me. You think it's
sure.
Is it the greatest ever? Again, I know
it isn't. It isn't yet, but it could be if they fight a third time.
What's bigger than it? I mean, Jones.
Do you mean best? Do you mean biggest?
I don't know, but whatever, however you interpret that. If you were right in the
Connor versus Dustin Poirier wasn't that competitive. None of the individual three fights were very competitive, but it sold more pay-per-views than any other, any other rivalry. If you want to just talk about the highest level one we've ever seen, that's Deiveson Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno.
Okay.
That's like just the highest level martial arts we've seen in people that fought multiple times, and most of the individual fights were great.
All right. I love Juice X, but we got to throw him out of the chat for his last comment.
Arlovsky versus Silva. Only if they fight one more time and the fight's absolutely terrible. Like if the third fight's absolutely terrible and then they fight again a decade later in one championship and everybody just forgets about that one, then it's Arlovsky versus Sylvia.
Yeah, I mean, it could be DC Jones. It could be Couture, Liddell. Again, not competitive. Again, I know I love to live in the moment, but it just seems so big to me. And now that they're 1-1 in MMA, with both getting knockouts, everything you said to Israel for when did Pereira make his debut in the UFC? Approximately, just you have to look up the date, but 18 months ago, 2 years ago, 18 months. The last 18 months, it's all he's had to hear. Pereira. Everything you said about him, everything I've said about him, everything everybody said about him, you can't say it anymore. The boogeyman, he beat him.
Agreed.
But to me, it makes it even bigger. Now it's on. Now it's turned. Now it's on Pereira. Now Pereira goes. I was winning the fight. I was going for the knockout. I got overzealous. Now I have to make an adjustment. And I know, as someone pointed out, that Izzy won all three scorecards, and I'm okay with that. Like it was a close. I understand probably he landed the cleaner punches, but Rick Allen throws out. That's not a rivalry. That's a hammer and a nail of being a rival. Come on, that's the bear talk. It might be the bear. Yeah, I didn't have. It was more of us doing shots, not bear. My wife's up in Canada this weekend. I'm a bachelor. And my wife and kids are in Canada visiting the in-laws. So, I don't know. It just seems so big to me right now, and I feel like it's going to be even bigger now. The third fight.
Agreed. The third fight's going to be huge.
And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, it has to be it has to be in Vegas, right? Like it has to be.
It has to be in Vegas, unless they're going to do it in like Australia.
No, but if to me it's like,
because in Australia they'll sell out an actual stadium.
Yeah, but if I'm Pereira, I'm not doing that in Australia. I'm not doing it. And if I'm Izzy, I'm not doing it in Brazil. Neutral territory, Vegas.
Neutral territory, yeah, Vegas, or you headline Madison Square Garden with it again. They always go there towards the end of the year. Just do it in November and.
And then you have that, Izzy going back to the place where he was knocked out and. I did it. You guys are all wrong. It's the biggest rivalry ever. You talked me. I'm so excited for a third. I haven't completely digest the second fight. I'm so excited for the. I love this. I love everything about these two guys. I love this. They're so contrasting. Izzy, is like this. I heard someone compare him to like a TikTok guy, and Pereira doesn't even speak English, but like he speaks with like conviction and. I just love this rivalry.
It's dynamite, and
I think it's the best thing going in UFC right now. Like, what's the one thing in the UFC better than this? Right, not a rivalry. Just like if you're the UFC, what's the one thing you're most excited about? Is it a fighter? Is it what is it?
It's the UFC is a huge winner tonight because they're likely to get a third fight here. Other than that, what else does Dana have circled on his calendar right now? Hoping something out of Connor Chandler comes that they can sell.
Sure.
And hoping that the WWE merger convinces Ronda Rousey to come back for a fight. Like what else you got?
Yeah, that's not happening. I think we said this. I know we didn't talk about the whole WWE UFC. I'll just say this real quick as we move on. Ronda Rousey's not fighting MMA again. It's not happening. Brock Lesnar is not fighting in MMA again. It's not happening. Nobody currently on the on the WWE roster is coming over to fight.
Ronda's not, because there's not going to be a weight class for it. Like, she is not a bantamweight anymore. And Brock already burned the bridge of getting an exemption from USADA and then pissing hot. So, yeah.
Okay, so do you want to talk about what's next? Do you want me to ask you a question about Izzy?
I think what's next is pretty obvious, so ask me your question instead.
Okay, so I think we're on the same page, which is rare for us to be. Is Izzy a top 10 all-time fighter? Greatest fighters of all time. You're ranking 10 guys, and I'm not doing one of these bet. I'm putting you on the spot. I'm not giving you 11.
No.
If you're ranking top 10.
No.
I think he is. Like, to me, again, I would do this. Let's do this super quick. The obviously on everybody's list, guys. Jones, St. Pierre, Anderson Silva, DJ, Habib,
Jose
Aldo, Fedor. There's 7. Is somebody I'm forgetting that's on everybody's list?
On everybody's list? Probably not.
Okay. And when I say obviously, I'm talking about that one idiot who's not saying it. Okay. All right. So there's 7. So there's really 3 spots for everybody else. Give me 3 guys over him. Okay, Stipe maybe. But I'll say this: I think Izzy has done more than Stipe. I put Izzy over Stipe. I mean, to me, it's like it's probably in my 3 again. I might be forgetting somebody because I wasn't planning on doing this. But Stipe, Izzy, and Alex Volkanovski is my top 10.
Yeah, I mean, someone like Cormier might sneak in there for me.
Cormier. No, Cormier's in there. Yeah, Cormier's in there. I'm sorry, Cormier's in there. All right, so now I do have 11. Fuck. I said I wouldn't give you 11. I can take 11. Yeah. Either way, this might he's past guys like Chuck Liddell, Randy Couture. He's past those guys.
Yeah.
He probably passed Usman. I mean, he's won the title twice now. I don't know how many title defenses. He has something like 6 title defenses, something like that. I just thought that I wanted to. It seems like when guys retire, we tend to think of them. We exaggerate their accomplishments a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So yeah, I think he's probably top 10.
I mean, he even for me, where my instant answer was no, he's clearly right on the edge.
Yeah. Someone said Mighty Mouse. I mentioned Mighty Mouse.
Yeah, but, he's one of our obvious shoe-in. He's
I fought for. I'm like the flag waver for Demetrius Johnson and Sherdog. If all the insiders in the rankings know that. All right. To me, I mean, we had an instant rematch when Izzy lost. Alex Pereira is not a long reign champion. He doesn't have a single title defense. But to me, I know Juicex mentioned Dricus Duplessis as next. To me, there's no way. There's no way. Like you got to do the trilogy fight.
To me, it's super, super obvious. The only thing that would stop there from being a trilogy fight is if Pereira is just like, I'm sorry, I'm done with 185 pounds. He's like, I'm not. He's like, I'm not fighting my best at 185. I owe myself better than that.
The other thing is another reason why is, and someone threw out Technical Wealth mentioned Hazmat Shemaev, which again he definitely doesn't deserve it, but again, just, based on markability, I get it. The other thing is, I'd be so worried one of these guys would lose, and you wouldn't get that trilogy fight.
Yeah, agreed. And especially since Adesanya is the man on top now, we're back to the problem of he's beaten so many of the top 10 guys that we're stuck with up and comers that may not be absolutely ready for prime time. We got, your Andre Muniz, your Dricus Duplessis types that, yeah, they've strung together 4 or 5 wins.
Brendan Allen.
Yeah.
I do like to suggest now that definitely the trilogy, but I do like the suggestion of Izzy versus Duplessis in Africa like that. That makes a lot of sense.
There's an angle there.
Yeah, Rick Allen's digging a little too deep than we want to go, but
Yeah.
Yeah, to me, I'm still doing the trilogy fight, and then you're hoping Izzy wins, and then you can do the African fight, and throw Kamaru Usman on a co-main event against somebody. Yeah. What about that? What about Izzy versus Pereira in Africa?
It's something that when Dana says it, I believe him. He's like, before I retire or die, we're going to have a UFC in Africa. I mean, he said that after the Usman versus Edwards, like the, trilogy fight just a few weeks ago. I believe him when he says that. I believe that it's probably a bigger personal priority to him than it even is to the UFC as a business. But nonetheless, since the things that he wants and doesn't want and likes and doesn't like so inform the UFC's decision-making process, I believe that's going to happen. And you're going to need to headline that with a champ that's, from Africa or lives in Africa.
Yeah. Yeah. To me, Izzy is the obvious choice. Obviously he's a champion, and
yeah, unless Ngannou comes back.
Yeah. John Jones versus Francis Ngannou in Africa would be pretty insane.
That'd be monstrous.
Yeah. How big of a favorite is Izzy in the next fight?
Still not a huge favorite. Less than 2-1.
Yeah, I mean, he was like, I think it was something like negative 135 or so. But
yeah, he was barely a favorite this time. I mean, he entered fight week at minus 140, and I think it's bigger than that, but not by much. Because even in their first fight, he was only like minus 175 or minus 185 or something. He wasn't even a 2-1 favorite in their first fight. Yeah. So I figure it comes out somewhere in between. Because yeah, this was a monster knockout. But if anybody watching this right now is like, oh, I know that Izzy's got him figured out now, and if they fight 10 times, he wins the rest of them, raise your hand, because this left me more excited for a third fight.
Oh, I'm so I want to just fast forward to that third fight right now.
Yeah.
I think I'm so juiced for the third fight.
Absolutely.
Anything else you want to talk about this fight?
No. I mean, we saw greatness. It wasn't a great fight, but it was a great result. It was a career-defining moment for one of the best we've ever seen do it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Incredible moment. And then the way he taunted him afterwards, the arrows to his unconscious body, that felt
very pointedly did it 3 times. It's like this one gets me back all 3.
Yeah, it reminded me of a Tito Ortiz, the Gravedigger type thing, or I don't know. Sometimes I like that stuff. Sometimes I hate that stuff. I don't know. Sometimes I can be a bitch about that. This one almost is understandable. Like, that's a guy that's carrying a lot of weight. That wasn't just a regular fight. Before that, the battle for the King of Miami is Jorge Masvidal took on Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns won by unanimous decision. To me, this is exactly kind of how I saw the fight going. Burns is so well-rounded. He's got power in his hands. He's a really good pocket boxer. Obviously, he's a wizard on the ground. And once he found his range, he couldn't miss.
Agreed. And it makes me wonder how much of that is him and how much is that just Jorge Masvidal. I try not to read too much into how somebody looked during fight week, how they talked, how they looked on the scale, but Masvidal looked physically a little different than he did just a year ago. He looked less trained. And Masvidal, for the bulk of his career, has gotten by on being really slick at slipping punches in the pocket. He's traditionally a really hard, guy to hit in the phone booth. And maybe he just doesn't have it anymore. Like, he made Burns look absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, Masvidal, I mean, his head movement has really declined, and I want to ask a question. This rise of Jorge Masvidal and this, I mean, it was something really historic, going from a guy that, yeah. Well, usually I like to ask you, hey, when a guy retires and he ends up retiring afterwards, you talk to your kids 10 years from now, your grandkids, or whatever. What would you say about Jorge Masvidal? What I would say is I've never seen a guy seem becoming like an overnight sensation from, if I'm being honest, more of a mid card kind of journeyman to a megastar seem like overnight. Where for maybe a year, 9 months, something like that, everything he did was just magic. The knockout of Darren Till, the punching of Leon Edwards, the interview with Brad Okamoto with a 3-piece in the soda, the getting matched up against Ben Askren, who can talk with the best of himself, 5-second knockout, the super necessary BMF with Nate Diaz winning the BMF and all this. Like, everything he did was perfect. But good. Your system.
No, like finish your thought.
But I'm gonna ask the question: did he improve, or was he ever not that good?
Here, and I made this point for those who don't know. I every year that I've been at Sherdog, when year-end award time comes around, I have ended up writing the article for the Breakthrough Fighter of the Year. Like, I don't pick them, I just have one vote, but I end up writing the article. 2019, our Breakthrough Fighter of the Year was Jorge Masvidal. And I said it's the greatest mid-career reinvention in the history of MMA. Like, the only thing you can even compare to it is Chael Sonnen in like 2013. But Chael Sonnen consciously changed what he did. One, he started taking a ton of steroids. Two, he started talking like a pro wrestler, like literally like a pro wrestler, in that he started grabbing lines from what's his name? Superstar Billy Graham, like that he figured nobody in the 2000s would recognize. And it worked. He went from a mid-card guy that was in danger of getting cut from the UFC for being too boring, like Colby Covington style, into a superstar who actually made Anderson Silva into a bigger star.
Yeah.
But what Masvidal did even more impressive than that, because he went from a mid-card guy who ended up on the wrong end of a lot of split decisions to, for 6 or 9 months, the biggest star in the sport without changing anything he did. Because he was always low-key, kind of funny on the mic because he didn't give a shit. But all of a sudden he had the mic in his face a lot more because he was winning. And he fought the same as ever. Just he got on the right end of a couple of results. I mean,
yeah.
And yeah, it just finally captured lightning in a bottle. It was so unlikely, especially if you'd followed him from the early Bellator days and the Strike Force days and him in like Bodog fight. You just figured, okay, yeah, he's going to be like a hardcore fan's treat forever. And he's going to be like a Bobby Green type that's always threatening to win fight of the night, but also threatening to win a shitty split decision at the wrong time.
Yeah. I don't know if the talent, like, he became this top 5-ish, top 6-ish,
but
guy in the rankings, but I don't know if the talent ever changed. Like,
no, it never did. Dude, we talked about this on the preview. His best wins, like Askren and Till, did not age well.
No. I mean, his 3 wins are Darren Till, who lost 5-6, and his 1 win was a boring decision over Kelvin Gastelum. Ben Askren on like 1 hip in a 5-second knockout that if Ben Askren turns his head half a couple inches, 3 inches one way or the other, Ben Askren is catching him and slamming him and probably grinding out a decision.
Yep.
Again, no, I know you can say, oh yeah, well, if Alex Pereira moved his head 3 inches, Izzy doesn't get Lynn. But I get that, like, but a little different flying knee knock. And I know he trained it and all this stuff, but he does it 10 times. He lands it once. And then I mean, the like Nate Diaz when he beat him, like that's not a good win. I mean,
No.
good in like bringing up your stock and popularity, but it wasn't a good quality win.
No, it's another guy that has even won again since then.
I'm not like a Jorge Masvidal hater, but I'll be honest, the gimmick thing, and I know you said you hadn't changed. I feel like he had the same personality. He just turned it up.
Well, he changed after all that happened. Like at the end of 2019, when all of a sudden he was the biggest star in the sport, he had not changed. When he spent the whole next year like selling his own brand of tequila and wearing a smoking jacket everywhere, he changed.
Okay.
Like clearly being able to afford as much cocaine as he wanted did things to Jorge Masvidal.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, I was watching, I don't know if it was Embedded or maybe it was a countdown show or one of these preview shit things. And Mike Brown was talking about like, he had to clean some things out of his life and, it's hard to stay focused. And yeah, he liked being a celebrity.
Yeah.
And, dressing like Scarface and all this stuff. It got old. Even like the stuff, I like the drama, but the stuff with like Kevin Holland this week and the still like crotch sniffing, cop calling, Colby Covington, like that, it just got old. But he retired. Do you think we ever see him again fighting Jorge Masvidal?
He doesn't need money. He pointed out that it's made him financially independent. I could see him getting pulled back out for a celebrity boxing type thing. I could see him boxing a Paul brother or boxing Israel Adesanya, or not Israel, boxing Anderson Silva or some crap. I mean, dude, Anthony Pettis just outboxed Roy Jones Jr. this past weekend. Masvidal is of that generation where Roy Jones is a godlike name to him. He'd jump at something like that. But I believe that we won't see him back in mixed martial arts.
I think I can see him going against Mayweather.
I can see that too. I mean, that's a physically big guy for Floyd to take on. That's about as big as Floyd could go.
But it's still a guy that should be no match for him in a boxing match.
Right.
When I believe people retire, it's kind of how they say things. If it's just like they're hanging up after a loss and doesn't say much necessarily. The way he talked about he doesn't have it anymore, that his skill isn't there. That's when I feel like they've really come to the realization that they've been passed up.
Yeah.
That's what it seemed like to me. Like there's no excuses, no he's sniffing my crotch. They don't want to really fight me. They don't want to wrestle. And it was none of that. It was like, yeah, like I got my ass kicked tonight, and it's time for me to be done. That's why I do believe this is the last we see him fighting MMA.
And it wasn't a spur of the moment thing because he'd been saying that all week. Like this might, if I lose, this might be the last time you see me. The interesting question is, would he have chosen to go out on a high note if he'd won tonight?
No, he was talking about fighting for the title next. So
that's true. Like that would have been dangling right there.
And we'll get to Gilbert Burns in a second. I'm going to do matchmaking with Masvidal anyways.
Okay.
Because the way we do our matchmaking, we're the ultimate supreme beings of the world. Nobody has a say, not Dana White, not the UFC, not either fighter, nobody. We've never extended it, so I'm gonna go with the ultimate fantasy matchup. All right. I don't think you're gonna expect this one coming.
Okay.
We've never expanded it to like the U.S. government.
Oh, good grief.
So here's my match. I feel like Kevin Holland, like they've sold it. There's a robbery. I think actually Holland deserves like Masvidal. I actually think Holland would be favored against a Masvidal fight.
Oh yeah.
So this is again, I'm the supreme being. No one can overrule me. So this is obviously fantasy. Masvidal versus Kevin Holland in a headline fight night. Ready?
Yes.
In Havana, Cuba.
Wow. Okay.
That's how you do it. I would say no, that's never gonna happen.
Yeah.
I don't think we roll back like what is it like? I don't know, 60 years of blockades and all that, but that's what we're doing.
Okay. I mean, that
Tell me
requires
why
you
I'm
to be
the
a lot more than just the head of the UFC, but I'm
yeah.
here
I
for
said
it.
I'm head of everything.
Yeah.
I'm the supreme being of the world. So tell me why I'm a genius.
Well, I mean, you're a genius for obvious reasons. That's something to honestly. i- If Masvidal hadn't retired, I was going to take the Keith Shillan route and be kind of brutal with him going forward. Like if he wanted another fight, I'm taking a guy that I, as the UFC, think is a top 15 talent but needs a bounce back, and give him his name value. I'm giving him somebody like Randy Brown or Sean Brady that had been on a hot streak and just took a single loss. Hell, or just throwing him to Shavkat Rachmanov or something to keep him busy.
All right. Jusek says that Dana White said in the press conference that Pereira is likely moving to 205. Let's do this real quick. If that's happening, which I mean, it makes sense. It really does. I mean, the guy's huge. I think some of the reason why he was at middleweight was because of the rivalry with Adesanya. You get like a quicker route, being that Adesanya is a champion. He did take the like Mario Brothers Warp Zone type route, but also when he first came to the UFC, I don't know if Glover Tissue was the champion or if he was right. Like he was right in the mix, the guy that he trains with. So that might be another reason why he was staying out of 205. Let's do this real quick. 205. I don't have a guy. I'll look someone up real quick, but who would you match him up? Next fight, 205 pounds. He fights who?
I throw him in there against someone like Jan Blachowicz.
You're
Somebody.
going real high.
No, I'm going somebody that if he beats him, he gets a title shot next.
Oh
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Like he doesn't have time to become that much better of a mixed martial artist than he is.
Yeah, I want to get him a knockout. I want to get him a knockout, get him like super excited about him again. I throw him in against Volkan Oezdemir.
Okay.
Like, third
he's
fight
getting the knockout.
Yeah, like third fight from the top on a UFC pay-per-view.
Okay, yeah. Like you give him, and that's about as safe a fight as you're going to find in that range for him. Because you throw him somebody like Anthony Smith, and there's a chance that he just wallops on Anthony Smith and then gets tapped out of nowhere.
Yeah, I wouldn't even get a guy like Paul Craig and knock him out, but what if he got tapped out?
Yeah.
So,
to
so
Johnny Walker, just give him the one guy in the division that's definitely bigger than he is.
Yeah, Johnny Walker actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Then let's do that real quick. Izzy Adesanya, Is it true that he's going up to from middleweight to light heavyweight? Sure, but if Dana White, I don't know if Dana White's guessing at that or he's already talked to them or whatever. But if that's the case and Izzy is defending the belt, you're matching him against.
I'm matching him against Dricus du Plessis. He's won 5 in a row, and there's been kind of a logical progression to where he's now beating top 10 guys, and he's definitely the hottest property in that division that Adesanya hasn't already beaten.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be some of that. Izzy's beating everybody else.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like he's the hottest property there that Izzy hasn't beaten. If you're thinking of giving that to Khamzat Chimaev, understand that Chimaev's best win at 185 pounds is Gerald Meerschaert. You might as well give Joe Pyfer the next title shot because Pyfer just knocked him out too.
He didn't knock him out as quick.
There you go. Like
there's your argument. Yeah, you know what? If you could do it in Africa, that would be a lot of fun. I just think, and again, this is we don't do predictions without getting to do some tape study, and think about the matchup. I just think that's a terrible, terrible matchup. I think Izzy would. Oh my god, I think he would beat the brakes off of Dricus du Plessis. I think you are bad.
I think it would look like a much worse version of his last fight with Italian guy. with Marvin Vettori. Yeah, it looked roughly like an even worse beating than this like more one-sided version of what he did to Vettori. And in fact, he might just knock out Duplessis.
Yeah, and of course, as Skynet already posted out, like Bo Nickel's coming.
Bo's coming.
Not yet, but Bo's coming.
Yeah.
Gilbert Burns. We're going back to the co-main event. Gilbert Burns, spectacular. Does what Gilbert Burns does. He's so good. He did something that Gilbert never does. Gilbert's the guy, like, to his credit, a lot of guys talk in the cage and they say things that aren't true and just, pumping themselves up. He said, I fight anybody, anywhere, anytime. Like, that's true about Gilbert Burns.
Yep.
But for once, he said, no, I'm sitting out and I'm fighting for the title next. I'm fighting the winner of Covington and Edwards and Covington. I think that's the perfect call, and that's how it should be for him. Like, he shouldn't have to fight another fight. Agree or disagree? I know the guy you got to say. I know the guy you got to say. The guy that you got to say. You got to say Bilal Muhammad.
I'm gonna say Bilal Muhammad. He's on an 8-fight unbeaten streak in the hardest division maybe in the sport to do that. And this is the only time that there will be anything sellable about a Bilal Muhammad title shot. Because he actually fought your current champ.
Yeah.
And it ended on a weird inadvertent foul. Like,
but then what would you do with Burns? Do you make him fight somebody else?
Yeah. Yep. I make him fight one more guy. I'd make him fight Shavkat Rakhmonov. I make him fight Jack Della Maddalena.
Oh, my God. That's still just a tough match.
Those are tough matchups, but
he's not saying no.
It's almost exactly, in fact, it is exactly a year ago today because we just ticked over to the 9th. A year ago today, he lost to Khamzat Chimaev. It was a competitive fight, but he definitely lost it.
Yeah.
Like, and since then, he's beaten two really, really overmatched guys that, didn't deserve to be in the title picture.
But you forgot one thing. Bilal Muhammad did not fight Chimaev, and if he did, it wouldn't be a competitive fight. I think Chimaev would murder Bilal Muhammad. But you know what? Bilal Muhammad, he is a gamer. He is an overachiever. He has proven me wrong before. So I'm you know what? Sorry, Bilal. You fight.
What else does? I mean, otherwise, what else does he have to do? Because there will always be somebody else.
Yeah, there's always somebody else. He's the new Leon Edwards.
Yeah, like if you think Bilal is gonna get trashed by Edwards, then just let it happen and let the rest of the line move on. Yeah.
Yeah, I get that sometimes. Like, just your turn, let's get it over with. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
My thing is, like, who's he beating? Like, yeah, he's on this winning streak, but like, he beat like an old Stephen Thompson. Like, who else did he beat?
I mean, he handed Sean Brady his first loss, finished him.
Yeah. Like, I think beating. I mean, I don't want to say beating Masvidal. It's at least equal to beating Sean Brady.
Yeah. I mean, Sean Brady had never been beaten and he got finished. Meanwhile, Masvidal just took his 4th straight loss.
But so Ant Milano says Luque, Brady, and Neal. Like, none of those guys even in the top 5.
Agreed.
Like, he's winning matches, but he hasn't even been a top 5 guy. He hasn't even fought a top 5 guy. And I understand.
He fought Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards was a top 5 guy.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So you're right. But it was like no contest. But okay, fine. Get it over with. This is why Colby Covington like messes everything up. Because it could be Bilal Muhammad and then Burns would fight the winner of that. Yeah. All right, let's move on. Before that, Rob Font took on Adrian Yanez. Now, everyone's asking, why is Ben having his hat backwards? That's because he doesn't want to show his Houston Astros off as my Boston boy took down Houston in the battle. It's not often I can say that, but Boston, Rise. I didn't even pick him, did I?
No. We both picked Yanez in this one. And Okay, so he beat Yanez, knocked him out. Yanez had losses before. I mean, he had 3 losses coming into this fight, but he'd never lost like that before. He'd been
No.
out wrestled. I would go so far as to say he'd never been outstruck, like let alone knocked out. What impresses me is all of a sudden, Rob Font doesn't look washed, because it's not just that he won, it's how he won. He won with superior survivability. Yanez tagged him up for the first couple minutes of that round. Like, Yanez hurt him. If you paused it 2 minutes in and said one of these guys is knocked out by the end of this round, I'm like, Font's going down.
I think he exaggerated a little bit. I think it was back and forth.
No, it was definitely back and forth, but going back and forth like that, I would have said, okay, Font's the guy that's not going to be able to survive this firefight.
Yes. Yeah. Generally, well, also not even just what was happening, based on their just styles in general. Like, standing in front of each other, you would have favored Giannis. Giannis is the power puncher of the two. Yeah, but I expected, for Font to win, he'd have to use his range, jab, L-step, jab, L-step, jab. Giannis gets in the range, try to wrestle a little bit, L-step, jab, L-step, jab, wrestle. And that wasn't the case. They stood down a lot. They sit on their punches. And for Rob, if you told me someone wrapped around like this beautiful hook and knockout, I would have said, "Wow, Giannis caught Font." We start questioning Font's chin, questioning, is he a top 10 guy? Instead, I thought he looked a lot better. Like, I thought he looked fast. I thought he looked refreshed. I didn't think it was the best strategy of standing right in front of Giannis, but obviously it worked out. And to me, this is probably the best win of Rob Font's career.
Thinking about it, that might be fair to say. Again,
so I mean,
considering who he did, how he did it,
yeah,
what he had to go through to get there.
Third fight for the top on the pay-per-view. Adds a little bit to that. They got a little bit of love on Embedded, not total, but a little bit of love on Embedded and stuff. So, and it was a really fun scrap. Well, it didn't last long, but it was fun while it lasted. Like,
it was
fun fight.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be on my list for round of the year. I don't know if it'll make it, but yeah.
So it's tough because Font's fought a lot of guys. I have a matchup. I'll see what you think.
Okay.
I put Font against Petrian next. I think it's just like a fun stylistic matchup.
Going to be a fantastic boxing match, and 2 guys that have the wrestling in their back pocket if either one of them wants to try it.
What would you do? What'd you
well, we have a bunch of bantamweight stuff happening in 2 weeks. If we got Song Yadong versus Ricky Simon, if Song wins, give me Song versus Font. Like, Simon and Font have already fought, but Song Yadong versus Rob Font, I like, because Font, he looked great tonight, but he still has, he's coming off of 2 pretty one-sided losses.
Yeah, and the Jose Aldo one's a bad loss.
Yeah,
at this point is correct. Not losing Jose Aldo at all, but a later, foot halfway out the door, Jose Aldo. It's not a good one.
Yeah, so if Song beats Simone, I like Song versus Font. Otherwise, I like Jan versus Font. I mean, I think that's going to be a pasting unless Font is really, really back.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's what I know. But to me, the loser is like done. But the winner is right back in them. I mean, if you're Jan and you beat Rob Font after he's coming off a huge win, you're back in. If you can beat former champion, after beating Adrian, after knocking out Adrian Giannis, you're right back in it. So, Giannis. I'm dropping him back down. He's fighting someone outside the top 15. I went with Kyler Phillips.
That's a fight that I was calling for before. It's because I think it'd be a fantastic contrast of striking styles. I'm going to stick with some of the stuff coming up in 2 weeks. Montel Jackson and Hani Yahya are fighting. Give me one of those guys, winner or the loser, depending on who's hurt or who looks really impressive or not. Him
and Yahya would be such an intriguing stylistic matchup.
Yeah, I mean, he'd either just bust Yahya's face wide open or he'd get backpacked. Yeah.
Yeah. After Yahya throws these these punches that almost knocks himself over just to get get to the like clinch or something. Yeah, this was a short fight, so I don't think there's too much to talk about. But it was really fun while it lasted. Exactly how both guys advertised it. But yeah, 30C West, just wanted to mention that another example of New England domination over Texas. Another fight. 30 West is saying is Kyler suspended. I think he might be. You might be right. I apologize about that. Kevin Holland took on Santiago Ponzinibbio, and this fight to me felt like it lasted much longer than it needed to. And what I mean that like we both picked Holland. We both were confident that this was like a changing of the guard moment for Holland. But it was about 30 seconds, 45 seconds to the fight, and I was like, oh yeah, Holland is way better than Santiago Ponzinibbio at this point.
Agreed, but that's right around the time Holland audibly asked Ponzinibbio, "Hey, do you smell weed?" And that's when we knew which version of Kevin Holland we had in the cage tonight. I'm here to like take in the view and kind of like enjoy myself.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Well, he did. In fairness, he won the fight at 185, so maybe that's why. Maybe it was his own weed.
Yeah.
Holland was faster. He was obviously. I thought Ponzinibbio really struggled with the range, and Ponzinibbio was like he's getting longer arms. He's he's more of a mid-range striker than an outside striker. He just struggled with the speed, the outside range, and the thing about Ponzinibbio has always been a guy that like step in that mid range, either shot to land, harder shots. Dev Goes Fishing sent me a text during the fight about Pons, and I totally agree with him. Pons' durability, and you have to really question it, which was always the strength, but that style when it's gone, like you live by the sword, you die by the sword, and that's kind of how you feel it's going on with Ponzinibbio at this point.
Yeah. That's kind of how I felt going in. Just Ponzinibbio, despite the coming off the win over Morono, nothing about that fight made me think that he had anything for the top 15 and that he wasn't on his way to being washed, if not there already. Yeah, it just doesn't quite have the reflexes or the chin. I mean, Chris Wiz, this is something we've known about Donald Trump for 25 or 30 years at this point. I mean, we're literally coming up on we're coming up on what, 25, 30, what is it, 2023? Yeah, it's like almost 25 years since he basically pulled the UFC's biscuits out of the fire by letting him put on events in, at his Trump places in Jersey when they could barely, what
was
find any place to put their events.
What was it? Affliction, was it that he was involved in?
Yeah, he was involved in Affliction. I mean, there are pictures of him on the.
He's involved in a lot of stuff.
He's been an MMA guy for forever. Like, yep.
Yeah,
White gave an address.
Trump has always been a big fan of I believe, MMA business and the porn business. I heard those are like his two big. Sorry, guys, just got a little political. I remember I'm the Republican, so I can make that joke.
Yeah.
So down, I guess totally sidetracked. Donald Trump calls Dana White twice. He calls a lot about it because I know he calls me twice a month. He calls you a couple times a month too, right?
Yeah.
Talking about the fights.
Yeah, I don't take his calls, but like, I don't.
I would take his call. Just if someone if anybody in here has a connection with Mr. Trump, I would gladly speak to him. I'll talk to Joe Biden too. I'll talk to President Biden too if he wants to. I'll gladly talk to either one of them about fights if they want to. Holland, I already went with the Jorge Masvidal in Havana. If that really doesn't happen, the other name, there was like some little backstory this week with Holland was trying to step in to fight Michael Chiesa.
Mm-hmm.
That works for me. And you know what I was thinking? Holland likes to talk a little bit and gets a little beef. Chiesa likes to talk too.
He does.
That I could see them having fun at a press conference. Like I see him, kind of the same range.
Especially because Chiesa can dish it out, but he can't always take it. Like,
don't mention his mom.
Don't mention his mom, or he will just lose his shit entirely.
Don't mention that his mom has tickets to the fight. Not anything bad. Just
Yeah,
she's
like
got
didn't
tickets
say
to the fight.
didn't say I'm gonna beat up your mom or I'm gonna take your mom out on a date, for a nice seafood dinner and never call her again. No, it's like I'm gonna beat you up in front of your mom because I know she has tickets to the fight, and that was enough. That what you say about my mama, and yeah, Kies is out of his chair. That was wild.
Yeah, and so I would go like, Holland versus Chiesa. I would do either like a fight night main event or more of like second fight on a pretty good, UFC. Like if they want to, I mean, I don't know if it's too quick of a turnover like International Fight Week or like a big pay per view. Put in like second fight in, two title fights, then a bigger name, and then Holland and 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 Chiesa like fourth on top. Did you have a name for Holland?
For Holland, yeah. I wanted the winner of Daniel Rodriguez versus Ian Gary in a few weeks.
Okay, you're going big. Yeah, it's for Gary and yeah, okay. Why does Holland have so many enemies? Like he seems so like it's like every single week we have like him almost throwing blows with people that he's not fighting.
There's something about him. There's something about him to annoy almost everybody. Like he's got many facets to his personality because he talks
Except
a
for
lot of
Habib.
trash,
Except for
but
Habib. Habib loves him.
it's the Ben Askren style trash talk where he's saying it with a smile and it's just sort of lighthearted, just kind of poking at you. And some guys can shrug that off, but then it really pissed off Jorge Masvidal to the point that like he missed some of the press week stuff and like Dana was like, no, Jorge's going to be at the fight. He's done with Askren,
Yeah.
But then he also has the John Jones style, I catch criminals. Then he's got the, I invite people who troll me on Twitter to come to my gym and I beat the shit out of them and give them bus fare home. Like just, he's got something that you disapprove of almost no matter how you feel about the sport.
Yeah.
Like
I think about the amount of people that he's gotten into. Like there was, twice this week with Jorge Masvidal. There was, I remember him and Usman and like managers almost went at it and Ali and all that. And then there was the whole, I still don't know what happened with Shemaev, like him, Shemaev, Nate's crew, and whatever that, the Dana, exaggerated how bad, it was.
That's the other thing. These are always exaggerated. Like this is multiple times now that we've heard that somebody and Kevin Holland had an altercation backstage, and in both cases, it's two guys 10 feet away from each other, like yelling as they're being restrained by their respective teams.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think I could see him and Chiesa get into it at like a press conference. To me, that would be fun. To me, at Pons at this point is just to get over the next guys.
Get over the next guys, or just put them in matchups with fellow action fighters that are, not within scaring distance of the rankings. Like give them to someone like Nico Price. I mean, that's a fight that would have been a dope fight anytime since about 2016. Let's just do it before one of them dies.
Yeah. I was looking at the rankings and who's coming up and who kind of deserves a name, and I'm gonna go with the winner of Matthew Semmelsberger and Jeremiah Wells. One that's a pretty dope fight as it is, but the winner I think would deserve a name. It'd be a really fun action fight with Pons.
Yep,
that's what I would do.
That's a great one. James Scott throws out Barberena. Barberena is another one in that range of kind of non-ranked action fighters that would probably be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go. Yeah, you want to say them?
No, just one more. Ant Milano says Matthew Semmelsberger, where that's a guy that if the UFC thinks he still has actual upside at 170, that'd be a decent name to build him back off of.
Yeah, well, that's what I just meant. If he beat Jeremiah Wells.
Oh, okay, yeah. Semmelsberger. If he beats Wells, I think he'd knock Ponzinibbio bad.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Before that, the opener of the card, 18-year-old Raul Rojas Jr. took on Christian Rodriguez. Before we get to the fight, I got to ask you a question, man.
Yeah.
Did you see the preview? Like it was during. I think it was like when the Chase Sherman fight fell through. So they had like a half hour promotion and
Yeah.
they did a thing on Rojas where there was a picture of him as a baby, and there was. Did you catch that?
Yeah.
I'm gonna put you on the spot, Ben. There was a I think it was a mirror or something in the background, and the family believes it was the image of Jesus, kind of like the what's that thing that like the Shroud of Turin kind of
Yeah.
thing.
The Shroud of Turin. Or yeah.
Yeah, Ben, you think
Yes.
that was Jesus in the picture?
I'm the wrong person to ask this because you could ask it about any picture, and my answer is probably going to be no. But no, I do not think that was Jesus in the picture.
On Easter morning, Ben. Unbelievable. All right. All right. So this is the Shillan and Doubted Thomas show over here. All right. He was really blessed. I just don't know if Jesus is coming, if to visit Raul Rojas, if his calling is to fight in the UFC. I don't know, like maybe like Paul the Apostle type thing, Billy Graham kind of thing, not fighting the UFC if Jesus returns, but I could be wrong. Rojas looked fantastic for one round, in my opinion. He jumped on his back, almost had a couple rear naked chokes. I'll say this: Rojas is really good at scrambling. Like he's a good scrambler. Like he had a peek out today, which was like, wow. He actually he tried to peek out, he didn't really hit it, but then everything fell apart. He gassed out, and I'm not going to jump off the bus. I was never on the bus, but I'm not jumping off the bus. The kid's 18 years old. To me, it not a terrible loss to lose a fight at 18 years old in the UFC. Still a really, really impressive to make it that far. But he needs improvement. So talk to me about it.
He needs improvement, and my concern here is how he'll rebound from this loss, because he, just going by hearing him talk about himself and hearing the people around him talk about him, he sounds like a guy with a little bit of hubris, somebody that has bought into his own hype, and it's not the end of the world, but it makes me feel like kind of like when Macy Barber took her first loss or two, where it's going to take some regrouping, some self-examination, maybe a change of training situation, maybe a change of weight class, because part of his problem, part of it is pace. He stepped on the gas really hard in the first round, and he may not be able to do that at this weight, but part of it is just that he's a big 135er. And if he's 18 and already has this kind of weight cut and these kind of weight cut related problems, none of those are going to get better with time. It's not as though he would be undersized at 145. He was visibly bigger than Rodriguez, even though Rodriguez is the one who missed weight by a pound. Yeah, I'm not fully on his train either. I wasn't coming into this fight, but I believe in him more than I did Chase Hooper at this point in Hooper's development. Like he's a better athlete, a better physical specimen, already a better striker than Hooper. But yeah, like we talked about this on the preview. If you ask me if any 18-year-old is a future champ, I'm going to say no. I'm going to take the field over that person because, yeah. But yeah, he's got to go back to the drawing board. There's stuff he could do. Like there's stuff he could do to fix this, but yeah, just right now he lost in pretty uncontroversial fashion to a kind of borderline UFC bantamweight.
Yeah, lower level. I definitely think there was a lot of good things to take away. But yeah, he needs a lot of refining. Moving up in weight could be a thing. A lot of people threw out changing gyms. That could be a thing. His obviously his striking has to go a long way. He clearly is not comfortable in his striking.
Yeah.
He's a good grappler. He's fun. He's very creative. But if you're going to be a one-dimensional fighter with not a lot of experience, like you have to be a absolute specialist, absolute like
Yeah.
you know
If you want to be Damian
center of the
Maia, not
universe.
Jordan Levitt, you better be Damian Maia as a grappler.
Exactly. He needs to be world class jiu-jitsu, world class wrestling, one of these things, and he's not. But again, he's 18, which is he's ahead of the game in that sense. Now we've talked about this before that we have concerns about if you rush a guy too much that one thing that could happen when they lose facing higher level guys than they probably should at this point is also the loss of confidence.
Yep.
Which is concerning. One concern that kept bothering me is in obviously it became worse in the second and third round when he didn't have the explosion because he was slowing down, but shooting from way too far away, no
Yeah.
setups, just diving in on a single, not feinting something, setting up with the hands, anything, and then getting in on the hips or going to an upper body lock or something, just diving a low single. Not a low single, just diving deep on a single that's
Yeah.
completely sprawled out on. Not a good look.
Against the guy that knows that you want to bring the fight to the floor really, really bad. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Anything to take from Christian Rodriguez? I mean, obviously he got a win, and I don't want to completely overshadow, but to me, I mean, he's still a low level UFC talent.
Yeah, he's low level UFC talent. I mean, he lost to Jonathan Pierce pretty clearly. And ironically, grappling is probably the best part of Rodriguez's game, too.
Mhm.
Yeah, I still don't see top 15 upside in him. It's just too deep a division. You have to be either super well rounded or really, really, really good at one thing to break the top 15 at bantamweight.
Yeah. Long ways to go, but this to me, this feels like it's going to be the peak of his career. And I'm not saying he won't be people better than Ross, but I mean, like,
It may go down as his only win on a UFC main card when all said and done.
exactly. He's on the main card. He's on a pay per view. He got the press conference. He got to experience a lot of things that people at his level won't ever get to experience.
Yeah.
So good for him. I hope he enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Before that, a fight that I was pretty excited to, and it really came through. Kelvin Gastelum versus Chris Cordes. It was I think it was the closest one of the betting lines. I could be wrong with that, but if not, it was really close to being one of the ones. Absolutely incredible fight. To me, I thought, even though Gastelum won, and I thought Gastelum looked refreshed and quicker and landing really good shots and showed a hell of a chin. I thought Curtis looked good too. Like even though he lost, he ate some good shots. To me, this was just a fun, like a lot of phone booth moments and just guys attacking with combinations. This is one of these fights. Like it will not be in the UFC Hall of Fame one day, and we'll get to that in a minute. But it's just one of these fights. Like it's one of my favorite fights. I could watch a fight like this all day long.
Agreed. Like outside of the top 3 fights on a card or so, this is the best you can hope for out of a fight on the UFC card. A couple guys that are at least within scaring distance of the rankings, putting on a hell of a matchup. Like what more could you possibly want out of it? I agree that Gastelum, he looked refreshed.
Yeah.
Like it's obviously Curtis, even though Curtis again is a guy that if he's not in our rankings right now, he was very recently. It's a step down from the level of people Gastelum has generally been fighting over the course of his UFC career. But Gastelum he looked more engaged. He looked sharp. His boxing looked as good as it has in a long time. Here's the problem though. Gastelum probably would have lost this fight if not for the fact that Curtis got hurt badly by an inadvertent clash of heads in the second round. Like
Yeah.
that carried
Well,
that round at least for Gastelum.
yeah, I'll say this. We don't know. But yeah, it definitely helped him. Curtis won the third round, Gaston won the first round, so it kind of comes down to that second round. The big moment of that round was Curtis was dropped when they clashed heads, and Gastelum kind of landed some grounding round. If we take out that, I don't know, minute and a half or whatever that was really swung by that, I don't know what happens in that minute and a half.
Sure.
So perhaps Gaslam wins that and wins the round. And uh, but if you're a Chris Curtis fan, like yeah, like that was huge. And if you bet money on Chris Curtis or something, it won't be overturned or anything like that. But there's a big reason to be pissed off. I agree with that.
Sure. And Aunt Milano asks, you know, well, he asked, and then you pulled it down. Were the judges informed of the clash? Usually they are. Like we couldn't hear it this time because they weren't in like the apex or something. But normally, Mark Goddard was the ref. He would go around to the judge at the end of the round and say, "Hey, that knockdown was off a clash of heads." The problem is when the ref goes, "Okay, you see that cut? That cut was from a clash of heads or whatever." That's one thing, but it's harder to separate it out when it's like that knockdown that resulted in like a minute and a half of ground and pound was from a clash of heads. Like how do you separate
Yeah, I
all
don't
the
think he
effects of
knew.
it?
I don't think the referee knew either.
That would be on brand for Mark Goddard, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. You guys are throwing exchanges. It's going fast.
Yeah.
They've had a lot of times. He might have thought it was a punch or something. What I'll say this again. So I understand what Ant is saying about it. Almost certainly, yeah, it very well may have been the difference.
Yeah.
My point is if Chris Curtis is, because he said Chris Curtis wins the rest of the round. Yeah, he did. But does Chris Curtis pick up the intensity if he didn't get dropped? Does he?
Right.
Is Gaslam a little more fresh if he's not trying to get it finished? Because he was trying to finish, Curtis when he fell down. Like it's just too many of like what would have happened.
Sure.
But let's talk. I love the guy showing up an hour.
The guy shows up an hour late, caps locked, and wants to talk about Izzy. Oh, we don't talk about Izzy for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about it for a long time. Yeah, we know it all. We said, you know what? Let's skip over the man. Let's get right to Chris. Let's go to the prelims. Yeah, I mean, I like Chris Curtis. I met him in person many times. He kind of, I would say he cut his teeth on the New England scene, but he really fought everywhere.
Every scene.
I don't know. He's such an open. I've met him so many times. We've chatted personally. He's just a good dude.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think one reason when you mentioned that he looked refreshed, we both kind of said refreshed, and I thought Gaston looked good. I thought Curtis looked good. He's young, and the time off, and I know he talked about personal things a lot and whatnot. He's still 31. Like taking some time off, let some things heal. That was the prime years. Like we think of Gaslam as a guy, veteran, had some losses, ending, going to the end of his career. No, not by age at least.
Yeah.
So I think that might be a little bit we saw too.
Definitely. Third, he's been in the UFC for almost a decade, and he's still just 31. He was so young when he came out of Tough, and yeah, again, in a world where Charles the Bronx Oliveira is a former UFC lightweight champ who may well fight for a title again within the next year, I'm never going to say never. I like it. You can't pigeonhole a guy. And if Gastelum keeps fighting like this, yeah, maybe the move to Fight Ready was exactly what he needed.
Yeah, could be. It very well could be. We talk about Gastelum being much younger than we think. 2036 seems like forever, from now, right? That's when Rojas will be 31. Gaslam's age now. That's what I'm saying. Like the people, I've seen a lot of people saying, he was never that good, hype and all that stuff. Like pump the brakes a little bit. Like I know it's not us. I'm just saying people on Twitter. Like pump the brakes a little bit. Like he's in he's still in high school.
Yep.
And honestly, not I don't know if I want to go there, but yeah, fuck it, I'll go there because I think our listeners are mature enough to understand what I'm going to say. Let's not put too much pressure on an 18-year-old. We saw what happened to another extremely young person.
Yes.
Not, and I'm no way am I saying that is the reason why I don't know. I don't know, so I'm not blaming anybody.
Sure.
But he's an 18-year-old. He's a kid. You know. So let's go easy on him. Gaslam, what would you do next with him?
Oh, Gastelum, he looked good, but this was still a really close fight. And he's still lost, what, 6 of 8, 5 of 7. You can't give him too much of a step back. He's Kelvin Gastelum. He gets no easy fights. In 2 weeks, got Brad Tavares and Bruno Silva. Maybe you give him the winner of that.
It's always Brad Tavares.
The answer is always Brad Tavares.
Okay, I'll give you my answer. What I'm going to do with Chris Curtis next. It was
Okay.
Brad Tavares. It was Brad Tavares. Yeah, I went a little higher than you, and I think it may be because I do think Gaslam beating Curtis is such a big win. Like maybe not that's in the rankings wise, but talent wise. And I go, you know what? I'm trying to think about. So I went with a much higher rank guy, bigger name, but I went with like a theme. Like you took out Chris Curtis, now go take out his cornerman, take on Sean Strickland.
I like that. I like the boxing we're likely to get out of it. Because in the wake of these, when we talk about matchups, it's usually we're thinking about, okay, what does Kelvin Gastelum deserve? What has he earned? Well, you know what? Sean Strickland has probably earned the chance to remind everybody that he was a top 10 cruising on his way to top 5 middleweight and he was on the doorstep of a title shot himself.
Yeah. What would you do with Curtis?
Oh, Curtis. We got Abdul Razak Al Hassan and Bruno Fajeda fighting in a few weeks. I was thinking maybe the winner of that or loser of that, just depending on kind of who tumbles out of it. But I don't hate Brad Tavares or Bruno Silva either.
Okay.
Curtis is a guy that his fights are going to be a blast every time. So you can just keep throwing him at borderline ranked people. And if he strings together a few wins, okay, you move him up. And if not, you just let him keep picking up those bonuses.
Yeah. We should play like a little game. Like who can we say more, mention more in our podcast when it comes to middleweights, Bo Nickel or Brad Tavares?
They just need to fight each other. Then,
Before that, Michelle Waterson Gomez took on Luana Pinheiro in an extremely close fight. I saw scorecards all over the place.
I'm sorry, you broke up there. Did you ask me how I scored it?
Yeah.
I scored it for Waterson Gomez. I gave her the first and third rounds.
I scored it for Pinheiro. I don't remember which rounds I gave her.
My guess would be you gave her the second and third.
Second and third, is that were the ones that was more decisive for her? No, I think I went.
You think you gave her the first? Because she tagged up Waterson Gomez at the end of the first round. Like that was, okay. All the rounds were pretty close. So
yeah, okay, that you might be right, but I scored it 2 rounds one. But I was like one of those like it's okay. I'm looking at MMA decisions. The majority is for Waterson Gomez. It's 5 people, including myself. I did submit a scorecard for Pinheiro and 12 people for Waterson Gomez. So I'm in the minority there. So I feel like this was really weird. It was a fun fight. It was entertaining. I thought it was really weird. And what was weird about it is I felt like Pinheiro was having a lot of success when she just pressed forward, rushed Gomez. When she got to the clinch, she was clearly bigger and stronger, but she spent a lot of time on the outside where Gomez was having like kicking her, yep. Like, and I was just sitting there. I'm like, what, does Pinheiro know that she's winning when she does anything other than stay in the range where she is?
Agreed. It was weird, man. I said going into this, the things that Michelle Waterson Gomez likes to do shouldn't work on a former Brazilian national judo champ like Luana Pinheiro, but Pinheiro never forced the issue. She let Gomez fight an outside kicking battle that she almost never gets. Because, Michelle Waterson Gomez, she presents as the karate hottie. She is one of the more exciting fighters to watch at an open workout because she'll just start doing like flipping, spinning shit that looks like it's out of a video game or a martial arts movie, but then against real live UFC strawweights, she usually ends up being kind of a grinder and wrestler. And like if she tries that on Pinheiro, she's going to go for a ride, but Pinheiro let her fight like it was an open workout almost. Just pot shotting from range.
Yeah, it was really, really, really strange. And I'm just, as far as like why I scored it for Pinheiro, to me, it just came down to like, and this is why I'm okay with how people scored it, because to me, Waterson had the more volume. Well, I felt like Pinheiro had the power. So it really depends on how you scored that. But like if I watched that fight 10 times, I'd probably score 5 times for Waterson and 5 times for Pinheiro.
Yeah, if I rewatch it, I might score it for Waterson Gomez this time. Who knows?
I think Waterson showed that, she was out for a while, and she's definitely up there in age and stuff, that she still has something left in the tank. She's still a tough test for anybody. So
Absolutely.
because of that, I said, well, she needs to be a test for someone who's been winning. And I said, you know what? How about the girl who fought tonight? Sam Hughes, who picked up win in the opener. Like I put Sam Hughes. I mean, she keeps showing that she's an overachiever and she's beating people that we don't expect her to beat. So let's take another step up. See if she can beat Michelle Waterson.
I'm totally there for it. Yeah.
As far as Pinheiro, I want Corey McKenna. It's not often that I go with two kind of newer fighters on the block. Usually try to, do veteran with newer. It was just one of these ones where I was looking at the range of like a range where usually when I think of people, I think of, you know, top 5 people, top 50. Like I went in the range and I was looking at people in that range, and it was kind of like McKenna was like going not booked. So that's what I want.
With Pinheiro, I've got her against the winner of a matchup, which may put her against someone who's also pretty new or somebody that's pretty experienced. I like the winner of Piero Rodriguez versus Jillian Robertson this coming weekend.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I like that. Let's move on. Before that, Joe Pfeiffer took on Gerald Mershad, with Joe Pfeiffer winning by first round TKO. To me, there's not much to say about this fight, so I'll let you take over and I'll chime in.
Well, we just finished talking about Waterson Gomez versus Pinheiro, which is a fight where I got the pick right, but ended up seeing the fight completely wrong. This is one where I saw the fight dead right, but got the pick wrong. Because I said, I had Mearshart by submission late, but if Pfeiffer knocks him out in the first round, that wouldn't surprise me too badly. What did surprise me is that Mearshart was done after that first hard blow. I don't know if it's going to come out that he had like a broken orbital or broken jaw, dislocated jaw or something, but not wanting anymore after taking one hard shot is almost the opposite of what you usually get from Gerald Mearshart. So it makes me think of something like Couture versus Rico, where Randy got his orbital hurt and did everything short of like tap the mat. Just I'm done here. Like something clearly hurt and compromised Mearshart, because from the first knockdown, he wasn't trying to get back up. Like he wasn't shrimping. He wasn't going for a single. He just kind of turned over and died. So good on Pfeiffer. The dude hits like a ton of bricks. Obviously, with the story he's got, he's an easy like marketing push for the UFC for as long as he keeps winning. And Mearshart is a good enough stepping stone to get bigger names. I mean, just ask Khamzat Chimaev.
Yeah, it's a good win. I mean, we've said this before. Gerald Mearshart, he's never going to be a title contender or anything like that. I mean, he's probably near the end of his career. But you beat Gerald Mearshart, you're a good fighter. He's a tough test, and Pfeiffer, to me, Pfeiffer just fought with like supreme confidence. Just marched him down, measured him, landed a serious shot. He has serious power. He kind of forced Mearshart on his back foot, which that's not how Mearshart wants to fight. Mearshart wants to be the one moving forward, but I think he felt Pfeiffer's power early and was trying to adjust, trying to make adjustments, and he couldn't, and Pfeiffer just put him out. Really good win. I'm not gonna match Mike or anything, but definitely a guy that every time I see him fight, I start liking him more and more.
Yeah. And he's a guy, he's at 185. It is still a wide open division, at least as far as getting to the doorstep of the top 10. Once you get to the
Yeah,
top, obviously things are a little twisted, but it won't take many wins for him to start getting into that rankings discussion.
yeah. Well, you know what? I do have a name. I know he can fight. Brian Tavares.
But pretty yeah. How have they
Uh,
not fought like a trilogy already? They've both been in the
yeah.
UFC for like 30 fights apiece.
So before that, Chase Sherman was supposed to take on Carl Williams. After Chase Sherman was supposed to take on Chris Barnett, that fight got canceled. Carl Williams took it fight on short, very short notice. Carl, like a week's notice, something
Yeah.
happened. And Chase Sherman medically announced it like as they went on air tonight. So we won't talk about that, but we will talk about something real quick. We'll talk about a different fight that probably is a little bit better than what Chase Sherman versus Carl Williams was going to be, and that was that they announced the newest addition to the UFC Hall of Fame tonight: Robbie Lawler versus Rory McDonald. Very quickly, talk to me about that fight. Most memorable. What to me? I'll say this. And no, you're not. I'm gonna do what I do. I'm gonna do what I don't normally do. I asked you a question. I'm not gonna answer your question. Tell me what you think about the fight.
It's one of the greatest UFC title fights of all time. It had everything you want. It was pretty constant action. It had actual swings of momentum back and forth. There were times where it looked like Lawler was fading and McDonald, who was younger, fresher, was was pulling was pulling ahead. Then and Lawler won by being what we always knew Robbie Lawler was, just the ultimate blood and guts bite down on the mouth guard and want it more than you guy. Like all that's one of the fights that you come to when you're like, okay, intangibles matter in MMA. Like that was an intangibles fight. And
Yeah.
yeah, just incredible stuff. Very deserving.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely one of the greatest fights of all time. I know a lot of people put it as the greatest MMA fight. I don't think it's the greatest one, but it's definitely. I mean, it's up there. Everything you said.
You famously don't even think it was the best fight that night.
No. That's the
Oh no.
Shogun. No,
Oh
that's the
yeah,
show.
right.
Yeah,
The
me and
Shogun
my
had
friends were
yeah,
talking about that, and they were all
yeah.
naming their favorite fights, and my buddy David Chickmorms do it. He had some David. He gets in this chat a couple. He was actually in here earlier.
Yeah.
He's pretty funny. He uh he knew exactly what I said when they mentioned Shogun versus Henderson. I'm like, that's not even the best fight that night. But it's an incredible fight. To me, it's the fight that gets brought up most when people talk about all time greatest fights. It's like seems like this one is the one that gets brought up most. And everything you said about it's the fight if you want to just show how brutal a sport is.
Yeah.
One guy's lip is hanging off, the other guy's nose is completely shattered. They had an epic moment, stare down. And another thing that falls into it, it was a Conor McGregor versus Chad Mendes. Like that was the card. Like that was the fight coming up next. So it was it was a huge pay-per-view, but it was like a bigger one, especially that to me, the rise of Conor McGregor was probably the most popular sport it ever was. So it was like one of the most popular sport. It was just, perfect timing on both guys' parts. Yeah, to me, it's when you think about fights that need to be in the UFC Hall of Fame. This was like to me was like the most obvious choice. If you had 100 people saying, "Give me a fight," this is the one getting the most votes.
Yeah.
Well
I would
done.
say.
It's a good UFC. I mean, what do we have? We have Pulver, Donald Cerrone. This fight is there another one? Are they not announcing it? Is someone I'm forgetting about?
Bisping.
No, Bisbee won it years ago.
No, then who did they just announce?
No,
Yeah,
Cerrone.
no,
Cerrone,
it's Cerrone.
Pulver, Jens Pulver.
Yeah, where they
This one.
surprised Pulver at home. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was a great one. Is there another one? Is there? Oh, Anderson. Oh my
Yeah,
God. The hell's the matter with Anderson Silva? Oh my God. Yeah. Thanks. All right. Can we cut this? Can we cut this live? Because that was embarrassing. Yeah. You know what? It's probably because you just think Anderson is like already in.
Yeah. Well, that's why I said Bisping, because Bisping, of course, outboxed Anderson Silva in their matchup. And, it's like. Sorry,
Yeah,
guys.
there you go. Nice job. Nice job. And I was obviously just being sarcastic.
Yeah.
I knew Anderson Silva. I was just playing. Oh, and Jose Aldo's in this class too. I thought he was last year. Jose Aldo too. Don't
He
tell me.
was Jose Aldo. He couldn't have been last year. He wasn't even retired
Oh my gosh.
when they made the decisions. Yeah.
Jesus Christ, it's Jose Aldo. yeah. We already, Finis, we already named Anderson Silva and Jose Aldo earlier this card. So yeah, that's a good class. Jose Aldo, Anderson Silva, Donald Cerrone, Jens Pulver, and Robbie Lawler, and Rory McDonald. I guess they're not doing a contributor this year, I guess.
Yeah. So now that Pulver is in, the most obviously overdue fighter is now Frank Shamrock, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely, Frank Shamrock.
Yeah.
In as far as contributor, I think and I don't want to go too far from the rails. I've said this for a really long time. A contributor that needs to get in is Jorge Gracie. Like the guys that are most known for starting the UFC, and there's some debate, but Art Davie, Bob Marowitz, and Jorge Gracie.
Yeah.
And Jorge's the only one that's not in of those three.
The fourth guy in that equation, like Campbell McLaren, will probably be in there before Jorge and Gracie.
Sorry, that's what I meant. Campbell McLaren. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if he'll make it in, but Art Davie doesn't give Campbell a lot of credit, but
no,
Campbell gives himself a lot of credit.
Campbell gives himself tons of credit. The real truth is somewhere in between what he says that I believe, and again, I know we're getting off track, is he's the only guy that came to that from an actual TV production background. So I think some of the production values.
Well, no, Bob Marowitz did. He was the big TV guy.
I mean, Campbell came from TV as well.
I could be, I don't know. My knowledge of it is like the Art Davie book.
Yeah. Okay.
But anyways,
right.
I'm surprised for contributors that haven't got put in yet. It's the Fertitta brothers. Like, I'm surprised the UFC hasn't put them in. Especially the relationship they have.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on. Cynthia Calvillo took on Lupi Godinez. To me, this fight seemed a very good, really fun fight. Not that I didn't expect it to be close, but this was a close fight. I looked at MMA decisions, wondering, how close it was. It was 18-3 for Godinez, so I was like, okay. But it felt a lot like the Michelle Waterson versus Pinheiro fight. And what I mean by that, not like how it would, not the style of what happened, but I mean Godinez won the fight like Pinheiro did, but fought the fight that Calvillo wanted, similar to what Waterson did. Where I felt like what happened to Lupi Godinez was suddenly she just doesn't wrestle anymore, ever.
I agree that the whole idea of the winning fighter making it closer than they needed to is definitely at work in both these fights. And she made Cynthia Calvillo look really good for 15 minutes, even though, I mean, I thought she won. The individual rounds were just closer than they needed to be.
Yeah, and to me, again, it's a lot. Some of the Waterson fight where it comes down to volume versus like power. That's why I did give it to Godinez, but I'll say this: Calvillo looked much better at 115 than she has recently, like at 125.
Agreed.
I was surprised how much volume she had.
Me too. I speculated on the preview, like, how is she going to be better back down at 115 where she left before because she was tired of the weight cut, and now she's like a year and a half or 2 years older. But yeah, she looked better than she did at 125, and honestly, she looked better than she had at 115 for a while either. She just looked really good.
Yeah, but in my opinion, she still lost. So, yeah, I wonder if this is the last we see of her. Like, I wonder if the UFC will get rid of her. I mean, it was a split decision, so maybe not, but I wonder. I'll say this: Cynthia Calvillo looked a lot better than Trey Ogden did against Ignacio Bahamondes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to me, it was a terrible mismatch, a terrible stylistic matchup. But then Ogden, like, made it even worse by just staying in Bahamondes' range, not looking to wrestle anymore, not looking to like rush him, not looking to like slug with him, just stay in this mid kicking range where Bahama's just teed off on him, and it to me, and he didn't match his volume or anything, but to me it seemed a lot like he understood that Bahama's was better than him, and he just fought not to get knocked out.
Yeah, and obviously it's not ideal for him. This was a makeshift matchup, but
Sure.
Bahamondes had been working towards fighting this weekend. So at least physically, he was peaking at the right time, whereas Ogden was supposed to fight 2 weeks ago. Ogden was supposed to fight
That's
a
fair.
very, very different fighter than Ignacio Bahamondes. Yeah, like he
That,
was,
that's fair. That's a good
but
point. Those are good points.
all in all, yeah, Bahamondes was better everywhere, and Ogden didn't especially do anything to help his chances.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Did you catch that one of the judges scored a round for Ogden?
Yeah,
What the hell? What round was that?
I I have no idea. That is wild. I'm just glad it didn't happen in Texas.
Yeah, the only explanation is that you just wrote the 10 in the wrong box and the 9 in the wrong box. Like
That's
I mean, it was clearly 3 rounds to nothing.
yeah, super clear. Like none of the rounds was even that close.
Yeah. Before that, and I apologize if I butcher his name, I'll try my best. Shillan Nardem Becky Narembeki took on Steve Garcia. Garcia won by second round TKO. So I think someone forgot to tell Garcia that he's supposed to throw the fight when you fight Narembeka. Um, I was writing all these nice things about Shellen, like, wow, he looked way faster than I've seen, like looked refreshed. He had at one point he had double overs and hit a lateral drop, and I was like, oh my god, I was going crazy. I'm like, I'm putting this guy on the Bulls list for that. And then like 10 seconds, like as soon as I tweeted that, like 10 seconds later, like Garcia just got up, pressured him, got super aggressive. You know, Shellen was breathing hard, and Garcia just started teeing off of them, making him eat body shots, and then finished him with a beautiful shot in the second round. Garcia's got this little like streak going. Any belief in him?
No, but I'm riding it for as long as
It's fun.
it goes, because it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun for as long as it lasts. You pointed out on the preview, Garcia doesn't really do anything at a UFC level, but he is incredibly aggressive. And if aggression is enough to beat the opponent in front of him, he's going to get it. And that was it. Shillan is better at every phase of MMA than Garcia. Garcia's only real advantage over him physically is that he's much taller and has longer range. But Garcia just ran right at him, put him on the back foot. I mean, he lost the first round pretty handily, but towards the end, you could tell that Shillan was uncomfortable with just how aggressive Garcia was. It picked right up again in the second, and it was obviously not the knockout of the night tonight, but it was a nasty finish. Like that body kick, oof.
Yeah, Juzak asked the question, who has worse cardio, Shellin or Rojas Jr.? The answer is Jacqueline Amarin is the answer, as she lost a unanimous decision to Sam Hughes. Yeah, Amarin looked fantastic for 5 minutes. Like, I'm sitting there like, oh, she's going to get another first round stoppage. She had about, 27 rear naked choke attempts, jumping on her back. But Sam Hughes, I mean, she is an absolute dog, where she found ways to fight on these rear naked chokes. And then Amarin looked like, she got shot in a lung and she was leaking out, and or what she looked like? Do you remember? Was it Excite Bike? Remember the old Nintendo Excite Bike?
Yeah.
And you get like stuck in the mud when you're riding, you hit the mud, and you're like slow, like you're going really fast and you're slow, like super down. That was Amarin. Like, Amarin Excite Bike in the mud. Like, yeah. And then she has a little of a little cheater in her. I like some of the things she was doing, it making Tim Elliott proud. Like she was grabbing her
like
glove.
grab the gloves.
Did you
Yeah.
see one point? I don't know if you caught this. She was in the guard, and it looked like she reached out and was like pulling her like sports bra. Did you catch that?
No.
Yeah. Maybe I'm the only
Wow.
pervert that was zooming in that close. I don't know. But yeah, grabbing the gloves, pulling the bra. I was like, man, she was doing everything. But Sam Hughes wasn't listening to her corner at all. Like, was like, he kept saying, like, get away, say something you can hear anywhere, saying, like, get away from her. She's like, I'm staying on top. I'm hitting these hammer fists. And she was fired up on the post fight interviews. And we'll talk to that a little bit later. But yeah, Sam Hughes just continues. Like, she doesn't have the best record, but she's just better than we give her credit to.
I absolutely. And she's better than I give her credit for. And she is getting better as she goes along. And it's not that she's showing new skills. She's just getting more confident and more willing to leverage the things that she's good at.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it was a hell of a performance for her, man.
Yeah. So there you guys have it. There is your 12 fights. Let's get into the fun stuff. Let's get into we have the awards.
I believe we do have the awards.
All right. So let's what we'd like to do is we have to say who we would have give the awards to, and then Ben will announce the awards. We'll throw it in the chat. Tell us who you would have scored it for. I'm assuming we have a performance of the two performance bonuses in a fight.
We have 2 performances of the night. We have 1 fight of the night. And I imagine that most people watching right now are aware what the actual awards were. So in the chat, why don't you just drop whom you would have given the awards to?
Okay, so the main event, Izzy's getting one. So I give Izzy one. Let me think. Unfortunately, anytime I have friends over, I don't do as much note taking as I've done enough of these shows. I want to wing it a little bit more than I normally do. Rob Font. Yep, sorry. So 1 foot out the door goes with Font and Izzy. That's what I would probably go, even though I think Joe Pyfer deserves something too. Fight of the night. To me, I'm gonna go Gaslam and Curtis. That's what I would do. So those are my awards. Ben, you want to read some people's in the chat?
Ant Milano wants to give the performances to Israel Adesanya and Rob Font. Fight of the night, Gastelum versus Curtis. Same for James Scott. Same for Chris Wiz. Same. Well, and a couple people, Dev and Marcus Mustard, both saying that they would give a performance bonus to Steve Garcia for the crazy comeback knockout of Shillan on the undercard. I like that too. 1 foot out the door. Likes Pyfer for a performance bonus. I don't hate that either. But the majority here seem to be going with the actual winners, who were, in fact, Israel Adesanya, Rob Font, Kelvin Gastelum, and Chris Curtis.
Yeah, I think the UFC got that right. So let's go to the Bulls and the Bears. The Bulls and the Bears are a stock market reference where if things going good, it's a bull stock, or a bull market. Things going bad, it's a bear stock or a bear market. We do it 3, 2, 1. I'll let you go first, Ben. You want to do it? Let's go Bulls.
Okay. Bulls. My number 3 bull is going to be. Oh, let's go a little bit left field here. Sam Hughes. Sam Hughes, barely 500 in the UFC, barely about to break 500 in the UFC, but nonetheless, as we pointed out, she keeps winning even as an underdog. And you know what? In a women's division that just, frankly, none of them are crowded. You can hang around for a long time, maybe pick up a bonus from now and then, derail a hype train as she did tonight. Number 2, Rob Font. I had Yanez over Font, and that wasn't my most confident pick, but in a million years, even if you told me Font won, I would not have picked it to look like this. For him to weather adversity, show the better chin, and then show plenty of pure power and accuracy in finishing Adrian Yanez, being the first guy to do so with strikes. First guy to even really hurt him badly with strikes in the UFC. Great night for Rob Font. Number 1, I normally stay away from main events, but Israel Adesanya, his snatch the mic moment from Joe Rogan and the little speech he delivered pretty much says it all. this has got to feel like the biggest win of his career. Enormous monkey off the back there, and just reasserted himself as one of the top pound for pound fighters in the sport. What an incredible night for Israel Adesanya.
Yeah, I agree with all yours. So I'll those are some of my top ones. So I'll change it up. I'll go Gastelum. I think he really had his back against the wall. I mean, injuries, losses. I mean, the week of the fight and his last time pulling out. Winning a really fun fight, getting fight of the night bonus on top of it. I think his stock went up. Rob Font, just to reminding everybody that New England has the best MMA. Southern New England. Anytime, so the Shillan wins over the Duffy this time, and obviously Adesanya would be my number one too, but I'm gonna go with Joe Pyfer. I mean, when you can starch a guy like Gerald Mershad, that's just a really, really, really good win. I love the chat was giving stuff that I still read what the Bulls and the Bears are. It's for any case we have any new listeners. Come on, you guys. Trying to be somewhat professional. Let's go to the Bears. Bears obviously is what you don't want to be on. Ben, I'll let you go first again.
Okay. Sam Hughes was my number 3 Bull. She is also my number 3 Bear because she ruined one of the best wins of her career by getting on the mic afterwards and saying that her boyfriend bet on her. In what world is it okay to say that? Like, have you not paid any attention to what's been going on in the sport around you?
I had it in my dude seriously, but it doesn't matter. Who cares? I mean, he bet on her. Like if he bet on against his girl, okay. If I'm her, I just go, oh, he was only joking. It didn't happen. I didn't realize. Oh, he was playing a prank on me. Or, oh, I was only joking. I don't have a boyfriend. I was just trying to say something memorable.
Yeah, she's gonna have to hide the boyfriend, basically. Like, Bear.
I wonder if her boyfriend is James Krause.
No comment.
Anybody confirmed if James Krause is Sam Hughes' boyfriend?
She's at Fortis, so like staying well away from him. Bear. Raul Rosas Jr. Anytime an 18-year-old is undefeated and appears on a UFC main card, takes their first loss, and it's kind of a disheartening one at that. That's obviously a stock down moment. He might rebound. He might be a champ one day. He might be out of the UFC 9 months from now. We don't know yet, but the first one's got to sting. My number 1 Bear of the night, much as it pains me to say it, Adrian Yanez, because he is somebody that I was never on his train as like, this guy's a future champ. Just, there's a lot of elite wrestlers up top there, but I was definitely on his train as this guy might be the best striker in the bantamweight division, even leaving aside people like Sean O'Malley. And I'd love to see him get the chance to prove it. Here, he straight up lost a striking battle to a guy that seemed to be on the back 9 of his career, and he lost by knockout. So yeah, it's definitely a stock down moment for a fighter who is near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, I had Rojas as my number 1, so I'll change it up a little bit. I'm gonna go with Santiago Ponzinibbio. I mean, when he beat Neil Magny back in November of 2018, he had a lot of buzz on him. He had this long layoff. Since he's returned, he's 2-4 in those layoffs, losing by knockout in 2 of those fights. Did not look good tonight. So Ponzinibbio is my number 3 Bear. My number 2 is Masvidal. He was on the peak. At one point, he almost was the star of the UFC. He's lost 4 fights in a row, losing in your hometown. Just his stock lost. And my number 1 is middleweight division contenders. Now Dana White is saying that Pereira is moving on from the division. If that's the case, it'll change. But if he doesn't, we probably have an immediate rematch, which means 1, they have to wait, but 2, also Adesanya has kind of already cleaned out the division. So your Marvin Vittori's, your Robert Whittaker's, yeah, Jared Cannonier, the guy that they wanted to win, did not win tonight. So to me, their stock fell tonight. Ben, you wanted to read some other in the chat beers?
I've been throwing them up on the screen like the whole
Okay.
time you've been going. Just yeah, a lot of people calling out Yanez as a bear. We got poor Robert Whitaker says Chris Wiz. Yeah, like the
Yeah.
guy that's already beaten him twice now has the throne again.
Yeah. Let's go to the cut list. The cut list is pretty self-explanatory. If both me and Ben have somebody on our list, the same person, we give the UFC permission to cut them. So Ben, I have 2 on my list.
Really? I have one.
Okay, go with your one.
I would go ahead and let Santiago Ponzinibbio go. He's like you pointed out, he's lost 4 of 6 since he's been back. He's not looked like the same fighter. And those 2 wins, the Miguel Baeza win has not aged well. And again, Alex Morono, he was a couple minutes away from losing all 3 rounds to a short notice opponent. I'd let him go.
Oh wow! So I saved Ponzinibbio, but I'm okay if he gets cut. But I did save him. The person you saved, Cynthia Calvillo. I know it was a split decision, so I hate going on split this. Cut someone on a split decision.
5
She's
straight.
five in a row now. But she got saved. Also gotten saved tonight by Ben. Chase Sherman. I was cutting him.
Oh,
I don't know what's going on. I was cutting him. I'm sorry. Like I was cutting. Who was it? Who's the flyweight there? He fought for the title. Reyes. What's his first name? He fought Figueiredo.
Wait.
He
Alex Perez.
Perez. I'm sorry,
Alex Perez. Yeah.
Perez. Alex Perez. Who's sorry? Alex Perez. Yes. I was cutting him, so I was cutting Chase too. So sorry. But yeah, everyone got saved. It's all happy today. Is everybody got saved? No one's getting caught. No one's getting. I was mixed. Yeah, sorry. Chris was saying Dominic Reyes. Yeah, I was mixing up my Reyes's and my Perez, and I'm sorry. It's late. All right, let's get to. Do you have any dudes? Seriously, I only have one because again, I was talking to my friends and.
I mean, Sam Hughes like bragging about her boyfriend betting on her is definitely up there. We kind of covered Pinheiro and Godinez both obliging their opponents with exactly the kind of fight they needed. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I have any other than that.
All right, I'll give the UFC one. So UFC, they did a fantastic job. You made the right pick for UFC Hall of Fame. You did a great job of getting Robbie Lawler in attendance. But dude, seriously, how about you get Rory McDonald there too? Like, what are you doing? Like, fly him out.
Is it because Rory's still technically in PFL or something? I don't get it.
Like, PFL's on ESPN. Like,
yeah.
If you're worried about that, why would you put him in yet? They're on ESPN. They're not rivals, really. Yeah. Put them right there next to Rory McDonald. They have like the big moment standing next to each other, arm around each other. I mean, I know it's Easter weekend, so Rory's probably
it being Rory, an extremely devout guy. Yeah, that might be part of it.
It might be, but then you know what you did? You should have put him in weeks ago, and then have you could have announced Anderson Silva or somebody else there. I mean, they didn't have Anderson Silva there either, so
yeah.
Yeah.
J6 has a great dude. Seriously, Kevin Holland jumping out of the cage 2 feet from Trump and not getting stopped or worse. Yeah, I mean, I didn't see the Secret Service guys, but they were definitely somewhere. And whoever didn't trank dart Kevin Holland, getting the talking to.
Did you notice that Kevin Holland didn't even I don't know if he was like punking off Trump. He didn't even acknowledge him. Like Trump was looking at him, also looked like he was going to shake his hand or something, and he just didn't even notice him, or maybe he did it on purpose. I don't know.
I have no idea which it would have been. That is pretty wild, though.
Yeah, that's a good one. that's a good one. All right, let's move on. Let's go to the grade. What is your grade for the card? We'll throw out the chat too what people's grades are.
Give this one an A. Tons of
Oh,
finishes.
wow.
Only one, like no lousy fights.
No.
A stunning finish in the main event that we're going to be talking about for the rest of the year, if not longer. Yeah, I mean, I thought this card was an A, especially relative to my expectations, because I gave this one a lower grade than you going into it. I was
Yeah.
like, this feels like bare bones pay-per-view, and it all delivered, man. Okay,
Yeah,
no,
I
I
agree.
take that back. A minus, because we did lose the Chase Sherman versus
Yeah.
Chris Barnett fight that we
Chris
were
Barnett.
once promised.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I went with an A minus too. I was on the fence up to that point. I was sitting at like a B going into the main event, B minus B, and then not just there was an exciting main event, but how it ended. It was so spectacular that
Yeah.
I bumped it at like a full letter grade up to an A minus. So toughest question of the night, Ben, always is who is your listener of the night?
Oh, I again, you regulars, you know who you are. And we had some pseudo regulars that are either, fairly new to the fold or have been missing for a while recently. I really appreciated the contributions of Ant Milano and a couple others that are in sporadically. Adam Duffy definitely does not win it because he said he'd be here all night and he bailed out like within the first 45 minutes. So, Adam, you're getting cut out of my will as well. But 1 foot out the door
That means
gets
I'm
mine.
in. Does that mean
You're
I'm
in.
in?
Yeah, you're in. You get all of my debt once I die.
Hey,
Yes,
I spend more time talking to you than Adam does, at least a week. At least I think I
I
do.
definitely.
I'm sorry. Who did you give your listener
1
to?
foot out the door. Like
Oh,
just
one foot up the door.
active
Yeah,
the whole time. Definitely some interesting takes on things. Made me laugh a few times. Yeah,
yeah. We had some great ones. Skynet had me laughing a lot.
yeah.
Aunt Milano was fantastic, but one guy that was funny had a lot of comments, but also did not ignore the fact that my city beat Ben's city. So 30C West pointed that out. So my listener tonight is 30C West.
Awesome.
There you guys have it. We've covered all the fights. We went as deep as I believe anybody can do. Before I forget, I want to wish my partner in crime, even though he's a doubting Thomas, a happy Easter.
Thank you, sir.
And happy Easter to all our listeners. We'll be back next week. We will have a preview show where I don't even know who we're previewing. Oh, it's oh my god, it's a great card.
Yeah.
Max Holloway and Arnold Allen, and then we'll be back recapping it. So thank you so much, guys. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, do all that stuff that we never asked you guys to do. We always forget. So please do all that stuff. And you have just listened to the most in-depth UFC 287 recap there is. See you next week.